Hello and welcome to News Across Nigeria. I'm Joke Rogers. Coming up on the program. The Nigerian police nabbed notorious kidnap kingpin and armed robbery suspect Vampire. The federal government commissions 100 housing units in Enugu State, commit to reducing deficit in the sector. And the Agri Ministry encourages investment in agriculture to reduce dependence on oil revenue. We begin in Abuja, where the acting president, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is calling on Nigeria's anti-corruption agencies to learn from the international communities on the models some least corrupt countries have used to curb corruption in their countries. The acting president, who described corruption as systemic and life-threatening, also appealed to the international communities to assist Nigeria in the identification, recovery and repatriation of stolen assets. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Presidential Advisory Committee Against Corruption, Professor Ise Sage, decries the perception and reaction of the public to corruption, saying corruption is omnipresent in Nigeria.
Corruption is omnipresent in Nigeria. High and low office holders, public and private sector, the executive, legislative, judicial sectors, customs, immigration, police, academic, the civil service, everywhere. The recklessness with which public officers spend public funds is insensitive to the point of insanity. Now we have to ask ourselves what the problem really is. We are definitely overwhelmed by an epidemic of kleptomania. But do we also have a collective psychiatric problem? Why should a person loot what he cannot spend in 10 lifetimes, whilst exposing the rest of the population to misery, hunger, poverty, wretchedness, and even death?
What I'd like us to do, if that is possible in the course of this dialogue, is to look at models that have worked elsewhere and to see whether those models are somewhat applicable here, to look at best practices, to look at some models that work. The truth of the matter is that there is nothing peculiar about the Nigerian citizens or the Nigerian type. Corruption thrives where it is allowed to thrive, and there are many societies that have been that have found themselves in worse circumstances than Nigeria and have somehow managed to solve the problems, their problems.
The Nigerian police has confirmed that notorious kidnap kingpin and armed robbery suspect Henry Chibueze, also known as Vampire, has been killed in Rivers State. A statement released by the Force Public Relations Officer Jimoh Moshood states that Vampire died early today during a gun battle with officers of the Inspector General of Police Intelligence Response Team. 5 other members of the gang were arrested during the operation with a large cache of arms. The gang members were said to have confessed to carrying out 4 successful kidnap operations after the rescue of their gang leader in January from a court premises in Owerri, the Imo State capital. The Imo State incident led to a manhunt for Vampire and his gang, with a dispatch of 5 units of intelligence response officers to Imo, Abia and Rivers States. The gang is alleged to have been responsible for many attacks in the southeast and south-south region of the country for several years. Staying with the southeast, the Nigerian Air Force has established a new base in Imo State. Governor Rochas Okorocha, who performed the groundbreaking of the Air Force Base 211 Regiment Group, commends the federal government for the initiative, which he says will complement the efforts of other security operatives to fight crime.
That signal welcomed the Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal Sadiq Abubakar, and the Imo State Governor, Rochas Okorocha, to the groundbreaking ceremony of the Air Force Base 211 Regiment Group at the permanent site in Ngopala local government area. The governor gets the honor of performing the ceremonial turning of sword.
No, don't worry. Excellency.
Governor Okorocha is grateful that Imo State is being considered in the scheme of things, especially as regards security.
All we want is let our land be developed, create jobs for our youths, and create empowerment for our rural populace. I'd like to say to you that even as we stand here, we've never seen Air Force helicopter and gunship in this part of the world, which means all kidnappers around this area, if any anymore, and all armed robbers will pack their load and leave.
The Air Force chief lists the value that the base will add to Imo State, the southeast region, and the entire nation.
This command takes precedence after Tactical Air Command. The unit will enhance NAV's capabilities in effective, efficient, and timely employment of air power in response not only to the security challenges of Imo State, but indeed in response to the security challenges facing our nation.
When completed, the Nigerian Air Force Regiment Group will occupy 150 hectares of land, housing the barracks, a command school, a hospital, and an airstrip.
From that groundbreaking event in Imo State to the commissioning of completed infrastructure in Enugu, where government has put a smile on the faces of civil servants in the area of affordable housing, the Minister of State for Power, Works and Housing, Mr. Mustafa Shehuri, has commissioned about 100 housing units financed by the Federal Mortgage Bank through the National Housing Fund. It's a mortgage scheme that allows public servants access to houses with a payment pattern spread across their remaining years in service.
Statistics from the Federal Ministry of Housing says Nigeria's housing deficit currently stands at between 16 to 17 million. And here to reduce that deficit from the Enugu end is the Deputy Minister for Works, Power and Housing and his team from the Federal Mortgage Bank. Funds from the National Housing Fund have churned out over 100 units of 2- and 3-bedroom bungalows with reasonable parking spaces and estate facilities. This, the federal government is putting up in every state for public servants.
Indeed, the National's plan to build several housing units in every state of the Federation for public workers over the next 3 years under a public-private partnership arrangement.
The Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria says more can be done if the right environment exists.
I want to appeal to His Excellency to ensure that Enugu State is not left out in this shelter program by the provision of land, minimum of 100 hectares for massive housing construction in Enugu State.
This no doubt excites the state governor as it tallies with his administration's housing goals.
All this and more are part of the greater plans of the state government to create more urban centers, boost socio-economic activities, and generally sustain a conducive environment for local and foreign investment to thrive in the state. As a matter of policy and obligation, therefore, we will continue to strengthen our beneficiary relationship and partnership with the Federal Ministry of Works, Power and Housing, the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria, and relevant private sector operators to ensure that the state aspirations and targets in the housing sector are fully realized.
As both parties agree to make this scheme work, it is expected that other states across the country embrace this partnership arrangement to improve the lot of public servants residents in those states.
When news across Nigeria returns, members of the Oshu MBA and the government face off for a second day. That's in a moment. Please stay with us.